So exciting news. We are going to be starting today and next week Friday and the Friday after that. We're going to be starting a little mini message series, and it's been titled From Slavery to Servanthood. And the title, or the subtitle of the message I'm going to talk about tonight is The Good Master. The Good Master. So I want to start tonight by asking a question. How would you introduce yourself? And I need some people to help. We're gonna actually role play this a bit. So can I get Kazimla, maybe it's Sepo, and maybe LT to come join me on stage very quickly. They don't know they've been called up, but I'm just going to ask them to join me on stage. So I want to do this thing and see how would you introduce yourself. So you see, the New Testament of the Bible is mostly written or made up of letters. And so these letters are written by apostles. These are men who were responsible for correcting, deciding and shaping the views and the values and the beliefs of the church so that it aligned to the teachings of Jesus. And so these apostles, they would write letters to churches about what they should believe and addressing issues that are going on in the church. And as all letters do, they had a short introduction. So these apostles will have a short introduction. So what I want you three to do is you guys are going to act like you're an apostle writing a letter to a church, but you're going to act as if you're you. And I want you to do a short introduction for us. So this is how I want you to frame it. So I'm going to help you. You're going to frame it by saying your name and then 2 to 3 positions or titles or achievements for yourself. So let me give you an example. If I was doing, I'd say, okay, hello, Word of Truth. I'm Joel, brother, cricket lover, and youth pastor. That's my introduction. So you see, so my name and 2 to 3 just titles, positions, or something about yourself, whatever you want to introduce yourself, and you're going to introduce yourself to us tonight. Okay, who's brave to go first? Don't overthink it. The first 2 to 3 things to come into mind. Okay, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Kazimla. I am a sister, a daughter, and a friend.
Okay, let's give it up for Kazimla. Okay, LT, Litemba. I've given it away, but you must still introduce yourself. Okay, go for it.
Hello, I am Litemba, debater, son, and student.
Debater. All right, let's go for it, man.
Seems the stand has been set. Good evening, everybody. I am Tsepo. I am a sport lover, a people lover, and last but not least, a God lover.
Hey. I love that. So we had friend, sister, God lover, people lover, sports lover, debater, son. All right, so that was the introduction. So this is what I want to do. I want to take a very quick look at how the apostles introduced themselves. So we're going to start with Paul. So Paul in Romans 1 verse 1. This is how Paul introduces himself. In Romans 1 verse 1. We're just waiting for the slide. My display person is getting there. Any moment now. Hopefully. TikTok. All right. This is how Paul introduced himself. I want you to notice this. This letter is from Paul, a slave of Jesus Christ, chosen by God to be an apostle. One of the other apostles, James, in James 1 verse 1, introduces himself this way. This letter is from James, a slave of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. Let's look at some other apostles. Let's look at John in Revelations 1 verse 1. It says this. Jude. Let's look at Jude first. Jude in 1 verse 1. This letter is from Jude, a slave. Do you guys notice a pattern? Okay, I hope you're noticing. A slave of Jesus Christ. I underlined it to help make it easier for you. And a brother of James. This is the apostle John in Revelations 1 verse 1. He sent an angel to present this revelation to his servant, John. And then, last but not least, and this is the one that really struck me in my own devotional time and actually was the idea or the starting place of this message, is the Apostle Peter in 2 Peter 1 verse 1. He says this. This letter is from Simon Peter, a slave and apostle of Jesus Christ. And as I was doing my devotional time and I just read the intro, and normally I just read through the intros because I'm like, there's not much there to really get, that word slave just jumped out at me and it shook me. And I started wondering, like, out of all the introductions Peter could have done, the rock, the one who walked on water, the mighty leader, a leader among the church or the 12 disciples, the disciple on fire for Jesus, all the things Peter could have done as his intro. He chose to introduce himself as slave and apostle of Jesus Christ. Now, a slave is not something you want to be. Like No one in their right mind wants to be a slave. Thank the Lord that we live in a democracy where we have freedom and we have rights. But if you think having a boss one day is going to be hard, try slavery. If you think it's hard to have to be a student, to go to school, and you have a teacher that you have to listen to and homework that you have to do, being a slave would be far, far worse. Normally when people introduce themselves, we introduce ourselves and we use the best titles or positions or achievements that we have. Or at the very least, if we don't use the best, we certainly avoid the worst. See, people have a tendency to highlight the best or at the very least avoid the worst. But Peter does none of this. Peter does the exact opposite. He introduces himself as a slave. A slave is not going to earn him any respect, any honor, any prestige in the eyes of the people he's writing to. No one wants to be a slave, and yet this is exactly how he introduces himself. And I started like, why? Out of all the things, why? And then I started looking at the other apostles, and so many of them in their letters are introducing themselves the exact same way. Now, depending on which Bible version you read, so we just read from the NLT. Now, if you read like the NIVs, they say servant, and I think this can get us to have the wrong idea, but the really older versions, like the New King James Version, that's the thous and the shalls, and Old King James and the New King James, they use this word bondservant. So the word we read in slave, some versions will say bondservant. Now this is what a bondservant was in those days in that context. A bondservant was a slave who had earned his freedom through his service or his years, so he was now a free man. And the first choice, or the first free will choice he makes, which inevitably became his last, was to remain a slave to his master. In other words, a bondservant was a slave who decided to remain a slave out of his own choice. And typically, there's only one reason someone would want to remain a slave, to become a bondservant, is because they had a good master. And the idea of going into life and fighting for themselves, providing for themselves, making their own decisions, figuring out life for themselves seemed unappealing because they were happy with the provision and the protection and the direction and the meaning that they were getting from their master, because their master was just that good to them. I wonder if we can... Now, let me backtrack a bit. So when the apostles write, slave of Jesus Christ, or bondservant of Jesus Christ, what they were communicating, what they were telling their listeners, what they are telling us is this: Jesus is such a good master that we want to be a slave to him. In other words, what they're saying is we don't want to be the master or the Lord of our own lives. We'd rather have Jesus. The way I would say it to myself is Jesus is a better master for Joel than Joel is for Joel. I'd rather have Jesus as my Lord and master than be my own master or my own Lord. And this is what the apostles were saying, and I wonder how many of us can honestly, sincerely say the same thing. And if we understood how good, just how good a master Jesus is, just how loving a king he is, just how righteous a Lord he is, we would be able to say the same thing. Now, I don't want you to make this mistake that we can easily fall into in thinking that the choice is your freedom or slavery to Jesus. That's not the choice. The Bible says two things. One, the choice is not if you're a slave, it's just who you're a slave to. Everyone's a slave to something. Everyone serves someone or something. And the second thing the Bible actually tells us is there's actually really only two choices. Romans 6, verse 16 to 18, this is what it says. Don't you know that when you offer yourselves to someone to obey him as slaves, you are a slave to the one whom you obey? Whether you are slaves to sin, note that, slaves to sin, which leads to death, or to obedience, which leads to righteousness. But thanks be to God that though you used to be slaves to sin, you wholeheartedly obeyed the form of teaching to which you were entrusted. You have now been set free from sin and have become a slave to righteousness. See, the option is slave to sin or slave to righteousness. There's no third option. You're either under the authority of sin or you're under the authority of Jesus. You're either choosing to serve sin or you're choosing to serve Jesus. And the results of serving sin is death. The wages of sin is death. And so if you are serving sin, if sin is your master, death, in every sense, in every way possible, is your fate. But what about if I serve Jesus? Romans 6, verse 22. But now that you have been set free from sin and have become slaves to God, the benefit you reap leads to holiness, and the result is eternal life. If Jesus is my master, holiness is the evidence of my allegiance, and eternal life my fate. You see, when you say, I'm going to set Jesus as Lord over my life, I'm going to make Jesus Lord over my heart, what Jesus does is he comes and through his power, he takes you out of the clutches, out of the grip of sin, and puts you into his house, into his kingdom, under his authority. He takes you from sin and puts you under himself. And so I want you, if you're a Christian, to remember this important truth. You are not a slave to sin. You cannot go around saying, I just can't help but sin. Like sin is in charge, I just can't help it. Will you mess up? Will you sin? Will you make mistakes? Probably. But you are not under the power, the authority, or the control of sin. Sin is not your portion. Righteousness is now your inheritance. Now, I think most of us here are believers. I hope so. Now, as you listen to this, if you're like me, if you're anything like me, there's this wrestling and this tension. I know I'm not a slave to sin. But why is it that at times I find myself doing the same thing again and again and again? And no matter how much I don't want to do it, no matter how much I want to do what is right, and I know it is wrong, at times I feel like I'm not in control. I feel like I can't but stop myself. So what's going on? At times, why is it that I sometimes just feel like, unless I'm very intentional, I always find myself drifting further and further away from Jesus? Why is it that there's times where I don't have this peace that Jesus says guards my heart and mind? Why is it times where I don't feel like I have this joy of the Lord in me? Why is it at times when my thoughts and my heart and my emotions, my feelings feel like they're all messed up and all over the place? What is going on? I want to introduce you to something I like to call the tale of two masters. Matthew 6, verse 22, it says this: "No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other." Here's the problem: is many Christians, in a spiritually legal sense, they belong to Jesus. They are a slave of Jesus, but they're still acting, they're still believing, they're still thinking like they're serving, they're a slave to another master. It's like if I was a slave and Vuyo was my master. Where's Vuyo? But Vuyo wasn't a good master. Vuyo didn't care about me. Vuyo didn't love me. Vuyo just wanted me to produce for him, to do things for him. He was a cruel master. But I'm powerless to do anything. I can't get out of my slavery to Vuyo. I just don't have the power to do it. So I go to Elder Putti and I say, "Elder Putti, I know you're powerful. I know you can do something. Can't you help me? Can't you get me free from Vuyo?" So Elder Putti comes and he says to Vuyo, "Vuyo, I'll buy Joel from you for 1,000 rand. Jesus paid a lot more than 1,000. He paid with his life for you." So Vuyo agrees and he says, "Okay, you can have Joel for 1,000 rand. I'll take the deal." So they make the transaction. Legally now, in the eyes of Putti, in the eyes of Vuyo, in the eyes of everyone, I'm legally belonging to Putti. I'm Putti's slave now. But I still go around thinking I'm Vuyo's slave, acting like I'm Vuyo's slave. And oftentimes it's because maybe I was getting something from Vuyo that I now am not getting from Putti, but I really want it. So I still act like I'm a slave to Vuyo, hoping that he will give it to me, even though I legally belong to Putti. I call this the tale of two masters. And this is what Jesus addresses in Matthew 6, verse 24. Let me put it in an illustration for you. I need some people. MZ and Imi. I think you guys are going to be perfect for this. Come help me do something on stage. Come on. Don't worry, I won't make you do anything embarrassing, I think. Okay. Matthew, can you hold the mic for me? Because I need my two hands free. Okay. MZ, come this side. Imi, come this side. Just close enough so people can hear. I'm sure you guys can hear. I'm loud. Okay, in this example, you guys are masters. I'm me, Joel. MZ, you're going to be, Imi, you're going to be Jesus. You're going to be, in this illustration, you're Jesus. No pressure, eh? Big shoes to fill. You're Jesus. MZ, you another master. I'm going to leave you unnamed because we're going to list some of the masters you could be, but for now, you're unnamed. So MZ is one master, Emmy is acting as Jesus. So I give my life to the Lord. So Emmy, come grab my hand. Don't be shy, bro. Emmy, okay, no, let's do proper man grab here. Like, this hand. You're going to have to pull me. So go like that. Okay, I belong to Emmy. But now, because, hey, there's some things I really want that I'm going to be honest, Jesus isn't going to give me because it's not what's best for me. So I want another master. Come here, MZ. All right. So Jesus says you can't serve two masters. Why? Well, Emmy, you Jesus, and I'm meant to be following you. I want you to walk that way, but only go like 40% of your max strength, okay? I don't want to be pulled off. Okay, when I say go. MZ, you are not Jesus. You're not going in the same direction of Jesus because every other master does not want to follow Jesus. You're going in that way, 40% of your max energy. Okay, ready, set, go. And what's happening now is there's a tension in my body that wasn't there before. Why? Because Jesus is pulling me one way, but I can't go that way because my other master that I'm trying to serve me, you can pull a bit harder, is pulling me the other way. And so now this is the tension that many Christians face in life. And here's what I want to say to you. Jesus promises you full peace, full joy. And the problem is never with Jesus. The problem is to receive full joy and full peace, I need both hands to receive it. But right now, where's my one hand? Only one hand can receive. So I have a partial joy. That's why many Christians can experience partial peace, partial joy, because they have one hand receiving it. But they have the other hand that cannot receive Jesus' peace, cannot receive Jesus' joy, because it's serving another master. And here's what inevitably happens. Jesus says, what's going to happen is I'm going to love one, I'm going to hate the other. I'm going to be devoted to the one, I'm going to despise the other. Here's why, if you do this for long enough, if you try to serve two masters long enough, you're always going to begin to hate and despise Jesus, because God will not share you with another master. God is a jealous God, and He knows in order for you to have the best, for you to have full joy, full peace, you can only serve Him. But this other master of mine, he doesn't mind me serving Jesus. He doesn't mind me having one hand in Jesus and one hand serving Him. And so He will say, serve Jesus, but just serve me on the side. And so I'll begin to love this master. I'll begin to serve this master. And I'll begin to pull this way and this way and this way. And eventually, if I do this long enough, I will let go of Jesus. And I'll follow. Thank you guys. So let's give it up for them. It is this wrestling that causes a lot of tension, a lot of struggle in a believer's life. And so what I want to do in the next 10 minutes, because I have 10 minutes, I want to just briefly go over 7 masters that are going to be fighting for your attention in this life. 7 masters that you might find yourself saying, I'm serving Jesus, but if you've been honest, it's Jesus and this thing. Number 1, money. In Matthew 6, right after He says you can't serve two masters, Jesus says you can't serve God and money. Now, Jesus could have used a lot of things for this example, but He chose to use money. He could have used one of the other 6 ones I'm going to introduce you to tonight, but He chose money. And so I think it's important we start where Jesus started, money. This is what it says in Matthew 6, verse 19. Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. Many of us have bought into this idea that if I serve Jesus, if I follow Jesus correctly, or and I'm doing it right, then He will make me financially rich, guaranteed. Like God definitely will make me financially rich. He wants that for me. Does He? Doesn't He? I don't know. I read the Bible and I read about people in following Jesus that He blessed financially abundantly. He made certain people who followed Him so financially rich that it's beyond our imagination. I think of people like Solomon and David. And then I read other people. I think a lot of the apostles and the disciples and the prophets who in following Jesus, He did not add financial wealth to them in any way. In fact, in following Jesus, they were probably worse off financially. The only thing I know for certain is as I follow these people who followed Jesus is that God remained faithful throughout. That He provided the grace that was needed for the situation it was needed, when it was needed, to the quantity that it was needed. I often like to ask some of you guys, what do you want to do, or do you know what you want to do when you leave school? It's not uncommon for me to hear, make money. Or why do you want to go into that job or that career? It makes a lot of money. And I know I don't say anything when I'm talking to you because I bite my tongue because I don't want to shut you down and cause you to stop talking to me by jumping on you. But when I hear responses like that, and please still tell me what you want to do, and if it is money, at least be honest. But the reason I don't say anything in the moment, but the reason I'm concerned is because if that is the only reason, or if that is the reason that you want to pursue something, money, you're dangerously close to serving Jesus and money. Let me move off from money so that people can breathe. Number 2, pleasure. Proverbs 21 verse 17 says, he who loves pleasure will become poor. Whoever loves wine or oil will never be rich. There's many forms of pleasure. Physical pleasure, emotional pleasure, entertainment pleasure, social pleasure, intellectual pleasure. And most pleasure is not inherently bad. In fact, most pleasure enjoyed in the boundaries God has set forward in a quantity that is healthy is good. But pleasure as a master, trying to serve Jesus and pleasure, that's where the problem is. And if I'm being honest, out of the 7, this is the one I've been struggling with most of recent. In the recent months, I've been getting home from work and I'm tired from the day, maybe a little stressed because things aren't getting done. So what am I doing? Am I getting down and doing the work that needs to get done? No. Am I praying? No. Am I reading my Bible? No. Am I going for walks? No. Am I watching sunsets? What I've been doing is I've been going on my phone and I've been binge watching series until late into the night, binge watching movies late into the night, scrolling Instagram or YouTube reels late into the night. And this is what I felt the Lord say to me as I was wrestling with this. This is what he said to me. You live in a world where pleasure comes in the form of relief. There is a difference between my rest and the world's relief. I want to say to you that the world has made it easy to find many relief-producing pleasures to deal with the anxiety and the stress of life, but it is not the same thing as God's rest. And every time we choose relief over rest, we are damaging our peace and our rest in the long term. So we often substituting rest for relief. And here's the big difference. Relief is temporary. Relief will mask the pain or the stress or the worry or the anxiety, but it does not solve the problem. It's like morphine. Morphine is a drug, right? And doctors give it to people who are in real pain to help with pain. Now, you give someone morphine to deal with pain. But after a while, the effects of the morphine begin to wear off. And the pain begins to return. Why? Because the morphine never solved or fixed the problem. Am I getting this right? Okay, we've got a doctor in the house. I'm going to make sure I get this right. Right? The morphine didn't fix the problem. So in order to keep the pain away, you have to keep giving the person more and more and more morphine. But you can't just keep giving someone more and more morphine. What happens? Can you die from an overdose of morphine? You can. And so you can't just keep giving someone morphine because they could get addicted. It's going to have negative effects. They're eventually going to die. This is what relief is like. And that's why the proverb says relief will make you poor. Because if you substitute rest for relief, you will always end up losing more than it gives you. See, Joel, I can go home and scroll on social media or binge watch movies and I will feel relief for that night. But come the morning, my stress will be doubled. My tiredness will be increased. Relief as a master will always steal from you emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. It will leave you broken, hurt, and confused. Okay. Third one. I'm not going to go in depth in all of them, but these 3 I thought were very important, and I'll just list the other ones for your reference or for your notes. Number 3, hurt. I was thinking about calling this offense or unforgiveness, but hurt, which in that is unforgiveness and offense. Proverbs 18 verse 19, it says this: an offended brother is more unyielding than a fortified city, and a dispute, which is an argument, a fight, are like the barred gates of a citadel. We have some people that are dangerously close to making their pain or their hurt their idol, and ultimately their identity. If you find yourself drawn to and liking and watching a lot of posts and reels that are depressing and about pain and loss and the pain of life that we all go through, and you find yourself posting that a lot, you may be stepping very close to the line of serving the master of Jesus and your hurt. See, people who make their pain, their hurt, their identity, they center their lives around this idea that, people hurt me. Life is unjust. Life always hurts me. I'm always mistreated. And so they begin to make their whole life around this idea. And here's the problem with it. A person who holds on to hurt or pain in their life is like a fortified city. This is war language. Let me paint the picture for you very quickly. An army comes to invade a city, a fortified city. Think like a castle. So the castle closes the gates. People man the wall. The whole city the castle goes into lockdown. And here's where it's different from the movies. See, in the movies, we always just have a big epic battle that we love to watch. But you see, oftentimes the invading army knows it's too dangerous, it's too risky to attack this fortified city. So what they do is they'll just camp and wait outside the city. And they'll wait, and they'll wait. Because they know as long as we're here, no one's getting in. In other words, no one's bringing food and resources into the city. And people need to eat. People need to drink. And so we just have to wait, because eventually the people, because there's no food coming in, are going to run out of food and they're going to begin to starve. And then they're faced with a choice. Either we open the gates and fight the enemy outside, or we keep the gates closed and we starve. Holding on to hurt is like this. It may provide, in the short term, in the immediate, some form of relief, some form of comfort and security. But if you keep the gates locked, if you keep holding on to the hurt or the offense, you are going to begin to starve. And that pain and that hurt is going to begin to twist and corrupt your heart and your mind, unless you learn to release it and to open up the gates. Okay, I'm not going to go in depth in the other ones. I just felt those three were important. And so hopefully there's someone or people tonight that each one was speaking into their space. The other four, and you can go in your own time to think about it. The fourth one I was going to talk about is comfort. Many of us are not willing to be courageous and daring for God. We just simply think Jesus asks us to do things that are just out of our range, too risky or too scary for us to follow. Number 5 would have been approval. Some of us are more concerned about whether people approve of us than if our lifestyle is approved by God. Number 6 is pride. We can find ourselves thinking what we think and believe is best, or we know better and that we are best. Number 7 is apathy. At times, we can have no care or concern for the things that we should. We will say statements like, it is what it is, it always will be what it always will be. We just simply couldn't care less. So maybe as I went through that list, you found some tension coming up. I want to follow Jesus and only Jesus. I want to be able to honestly say it's Jesus and only Jesus. But how? I have a real pain that I'm dealing with. How can I survive in this life if I'm not focused on money? Everything's expensive. Nothing's cheap these days. Pleasure is really desirable. I really do care about the approval of some people. I really just simply, I know there's things I should care about, but I really just don't care. Sometimes I actually really do think I know best. And sometimes I'm just too scared to step out of that comfort zone that I'm being called out of. How do I actually manage this? And this is how I want to close. Matthew 6, verse 33, it says this. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. Do you have enough faith to serve the king in his kingdom and trust that he'll take care of the rest? Do you trust Jesus enough? Do you believe that he's good enough, that if you decide to serve him and his kingdom alone, if you become a citizen of his kingdom, do you trust him enough that he will take care of the rest? And that it can be Jesus and only Jesus, and you can leave him to worry about all the other things that normally concern us in life. So this is my challenge and application for you. Identify one of the 7 or any other things God may highlight as the master in your season right now that he's trying to get you to take both hands off Jesus and give it one of your hands to serve. And when you've identified it, ask God how you can make sure you stay serving Jesus with both hands and you don't allow it to take you away.